Do you think $200,000 is good? Is that enough to make it in this economy? We don't think so. Listen on if you want to find out what it's going to really take to become wealthy in today's economy. Hello, everybody. This is Jake Stenziano, host of the Jake and Gino podcast. Here with my co-host, the multifamily mentor, the coach of chef, the father of six, the best-selling author, the G Daddy, Gino Barbaro. Gino, how's it going?
Jake, I'm doing great today. How you doing, bro?
Always making it happen, big man. And today we have a special edition of the show, and we will be sharing our wealth roadmap. So, Mr. G Papa Father Funk Daddy Flex, where do folks get started on this journey?
That is a lot of adjectives there. I don't know if
I don't even know what an adjective is, but I'm glad I'm throwing them out there.
And we're going to be talking about wealth today. So I think first thing, Jake, is it's all about the mindset. I think the first thing we need to do is we need to subtract away by how much somebody makes versus what wealth is, because I know plenty of people who are making seven-figure incomes that are living paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. That's just the reality. And as you get into this, you're going to see that if somebody's making $1 million a year as a W-2 employee, but yet somebody's making $300,000 or $400,000 a year as a real estate professional, well, which one is doing better? You're going to decide by the end of the podcast, because when we talk about tax benefits, that whole mindset of somebody creating wealth versus just working at a W-2 job. And we're not here to bash anybody. We're not here to say this one way is better than the other, because we all choose our paths in life. What we want to do is we want to enlighten you on how to become wealthy if that's the path you choose, because that's what we've been focusing on the last 12 to 15 years. And the way I'd like to start this out with is wealth is a game. The rules of money, they're a game. Go back to Andrew Cordell's podcast that we did. It's on the 100-Year Podcast with Andrew Cordell. He talks about money. If you're going to play a game, let's say you're going to pick up and play football, you're not going to use a hockey stick to play football. You're going to learn the rules of the game. So we're here to talk a little bit about the rules of money, the rules of wealth, and the mindset that you need to adopt to become wealthy. And I think the first thing for me, Jake had mentioned in another podcast, when you're working as an employee and when you're working as a business owner / entrepreneur, you're just playing two different games. One of them, the W-2 employee, has a ceiling. They just do. I mean, they can keep going up the ladder, but the tax benefits aren't there. The ability to buy assets and to create that long-term wealth is not there, just because of the mindset and because of the opportunity. Now, for myself, it was the same thing when I had the small business. I had one restaurant. I was working a job, it felt like. Now, I didn't know how to create wealth. What I should have been doing was creating other assets, buying other restaurants, maybe getting to the franchise space. I didn't know at the time, but there was definitely a way to build wealth. And I was just not having that right mindset. And I think the other thing I like to say is I want everyone to write this down, because this really hit me when I heard this last year. The rich, they sell. The wealthy, they hold. There's another mindset. Transactions pay the bills. Equity makes you rich. Those of us that are rich or want to get a few bucks in our pockets, because everyone says, hey, lack of money is my problem. Let me tell you something. Lack of money is not the problem. Being responsible and not being responsible, that's the problem for most people out there. And I see Jake taking copious notes there as I'm speaking, because we've both been through copious. You like that? I mean, adjectives, copious, wealthy mindset. I've got to up my game in my vocabulary here. But I just... the get there-itis is another thing that I think the rich and people who want to make money are all about. And there's nothing wrong with that. We want to get money. We want to earn the money. But the problem is, once you've earned the money, what do? You need to learn skills. Wealthy people want to translate value and create impact in other people's lives. That's what true wealth is. It's not just making money, but it's actually creating impact for other people's lives. And that's why I created the Jake and Gino community. Because after years and years of working in multifamily and making the money and working on the cash flow every month, it becomes a little boring and repetitive for me. I want to start creating wealth, and I want to start creating impact for others, and I want to be a role model for my children. That was all about for me. And at this point, with students that have over 50,000 units closed, they've got over $4 billion in assets that they've purchased. They've raised hundreds of millions of dollars. And Jake and I have been, at the forefront of creating this community and allowing people to do that. That's where I am now. I would not have had this wealthy mindset 10 or 15 years ago, because for me, 10 or 15 years ago is what's in it for me? What am I going to get? How am I going to make the money? Now I am not chasing money anymore. Wealthy people chase opportunity. That opportunity ultimately brings you the money, Jake.
Man, a lot of passion behind the G-Dad this morning. A couple thoughts here. You broke it down into essentially 3 income groups: the wealthy, the rich, and the middle class. And here's the hard reality I'm going to put out there to you folks. If you got a promotion to junior partner in your firm, or whatever you may be doing, and you and your family are making around that 200 to 250 mark, I'm sorry to say this, but number one, you're not in the rich class. Okay. You're just not. Your tax benefits are not there. With inflation, $200,000 to $250,000, you're middle class. And that's the hard reality, because when I was growing up, I thought 50,000 was really good. And if you had told me 200,000, I was like, oh shit, I'm done. I made it. It's just not the reality anymore, folks. And the point that Gino made was so profound. There's a different game that you're playing, because however much you want to climb that corporate ladder, you're going to keep hitting the ceiling for income production, and you're not going to have the same tax benefits. You're just playing a different game. Look, when you get out into real world entrepreneurship, there's no safety net, but there's also no ceiling, and you can rise as far as your creative mind and work ethic will take you. And that's the number one difference. So great points, Gino. Sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow, but ultimately, if you want to truly become rich and wealthy, sometimes you got to take that restrictor plate off the red dragon, right? As Will Ferrell said in Old School. I saw that the other day, and it's the truth.
And Jake, I'm not here to criticize one class.
Not criticizing. No, I'm just stating the facts, brother.
Oh, and what I'm really mad about when you say passionate, I don't care what anybody says. The government has created this, from taking those off the gold standard to printing all this money. They have created this situation, and there's no financial intelligence. People with financial intelligence can change the world for the better. That's what we're here for. We're trying to educate people on the current situation now. That's what's going on. So when you hear people say, get rid of your debt, pay down your debt, well, what kind of debt are we talking about? If it's personal debt, I'm all for it. There's no credit card debt, no car loans. But man, how many millions of dollars of real estate debt do we have? That's non-recourse. That's paying us every month. So let's talk a little bit about financial intelligence, but we're not here to castigate one group against the other. The reality is we need to be educated on what's going on, and it's not getting it any better because there's so much money out there. There's so many interest groups. So just figure out where you want to go.
Good luck getting rich in this economy without using debt. That's all I'm going to say about that, because I just don't want to move on from that. Because look, in our personal lives, we're very upfront about it. We don't carry personal debt, but if you really want to get wealthy without having business debt, you're going to be an old man by the time you get there without levering up. Just saying. Sorry to put you off there.
Jake, why is that? Because if you borrow $1 today to buy this pen is going to appreciate in the future if it's an asset. Meanwhile, the dollar of debt in 5 years is probably worth 80 cents. So you're paying it back with cheaper dollars. So that's really, really profound. The money's deflating them, and the value of the assets inflating while the currency is deflating. So you're getting a double bang for the buck. Plus, you're getting a tax benefit on this. Plus, this pen is paying you every month. So think of all of the benefits.
The pen is an apartment building to Gino, just so everyone's clear.
Yes, but I'm holding this pen. I'm like, this pen. Gotcha. And what does the middle class or the poor mentality do? They buy a car. Although nowadays cars don't depreciate because you can't find them. But the reality is what they do is they buy a car. They buy the car. They put it on debt. They get no tax benefits. The car costs them every month. And it's depreciating.
It's like an average payment now of $700 in the US. I just read that the other day too.
Yes. So think about that. You're paying $700 for a luxury that you don't need. You want it. Now we can go with the $200 car or $300 car. We need cars to get to work. Let's say I'm not disagreeing with that, but that's the problem. A wealthy person is buying assets and they're appreciating and they're getting benefits. The middle class and a poor person mentality is actually buying assets that they think are assets, but they're true liabilities to them in the sense that they're taking money in their pocket. They're not getting any benefits, and the asset's depreciating in value. So the first thing I like to say, Jake, produce at your W-2 job. Wherever you are, make money, produce the money. We're not saying you don't do that, but what do you do with that money? Are you a steward of your money? Are you handing your money over to the mutual funds and saying, I don't want to know anything. I'm not responsible. I want to make my 8 or 9% per year, which is what they say you're making, but you're lucky at the end of the day to make 3 to 4% once you take away taxes, once you take away all the fees that you're paying. So make that money. What I want you to do as the wealthy mindset, though, is save that money to buy an asset. We want to buy assets with that money, and we're saving to buy the asset, not for the event. We're taught as the middle class to save for retirement, to save for college, to save for another home, whatever it may be. Put the money in a savings account. I love whole life. I put money in my whole life insurance. I can always borrow that money out. That money's there. I want to buy an asset to pay for the event. Quick example that I like to use all the time. Jake and I bought our first property back in 2013, long time ago, everybody. We were lucky. Got into the market good. I don't think it was luck. I think it was a lot of work. We bought that first asset. We still own that first asset. In 2018, my daughter went to college 5 years ago. She graduated. That one little 25-unit property, mom and pop, that we bought paid her way through college. My son is a sophomore now, going to be a junior. That house, that 25 units we still own. It's still paying for his college. And I have some money left over. And oh, by the way, the property is appreciating. And oh, by the way, the mortgage is getting paid down by the residents. And oh, by the way, there's tax benefits. So a 25-unit little property, when my kids, and I have 6 kids, and I will guarantee you that we're going to hold this property, it's going to pay for all 6 of my children's college. I'm still going to own that asset. Now, if I'd put $100,000 in a savings account away and my daughter went to college, that money would have been depleted. It would have been gone after one. But I have an asset that's going to pay for all 6. Can you imagine if you do this for your entire life? If you're saving for your retirement, you're buying these assets and they're producing cash flow today. So you can enjoy the money today and enjoy the benefits today and not worry about 40 years from now. What's going to happen 40 years? We don't know what's going to happen 40 years. Let's start enjoying the money today. I'm using that asset also for other things. Money's coming in, paying the college, and I'm also using it for other venues. So please save for an asset for that event. Don't just put money in a savings account like a 529 or a 401k, which loses because of inflation and because of all these regulations. Do you want to go into business with the government? Really? Do you want to put your money in a 529 plan and then they're going to go 3 years from now, change the rules on you, or a 401k where you can't touch your money till you're 59 and a half? And then at 70 years old, they're going to say you need to take that money out. You don't have control. That's what we want as the wealthy. The wealthy want control of their assets. You don't have control of your assets if you're putting money into a government, sponsored program. And that's what 401ks are. But you know what's great? Wall Street likes it because you're putting money in. And by 7, you're putting money out. So you see the supply of money going into the market and the supply coming out. So they've created supply and demand over the last 50 years. And they're going to continue to tell you, yeah, save and invest. Who's making money there? Follow the money, everybody.
And you're turning over control. I think that's a typical theme. When you lack the full responsibility to manage your money, you're sending it either to Wall Street in various forms or one of these 529 plans. I will say that from this day forward, our first deal, 25-unit courtyard cottages, will forever be known as Gino's Family College Fund. And the point is well made, sir. Look, you save for the asset, not the event. The asset will pay for the events over time. That's the key. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from today's show. And one of the biggest differences, because look, you're rushing out to buy that car. You're rushing out to pay these college bills. Where if you save for an asset that will provide cash flow over generations, that will change your life drastically. And I think it starts with education, right? And that's what we're all about today. Education times action will equal results. Okay. This is a change in the mindset. You get educated correctly, and then you don't have the shiny object syndrome. So you let this stuff play out over decades. We always say, think in decades. Okay. Look, everything that we do in multifamily, whether it's the 10-year treasury spread, whether it's a 10-year fixed rate loan, okay, it's all based on long-term thinking. And that's where the wealth is created. We're paying off these notes in 10-year chunks. Okay. It makes a very big difference when you look at a deal over the course of a decade versus over the course of 3 years. Look, you may buy a deal right now. Next couple of years could be a little bumpy due to the economy. Who knows, right? I'm just saying. But over the course of that 10-year period, if you bought the deal right, you managed it right, you financed it right, you're going to ultimately be happy in most circumstances with these multifamily deals. And Gino, what about like the education and the mastermind groups, makes such a big difference? Because I think when people are around maybe their families and the naysayers, it gets hard. How do folks get outside their comfort zone and really get around like-minded people?
Boy, you just tossed me like a nice little softball question there because it's amazing. I'm looking at it and I'm saying he just pivoted beautifully. He's talking about education times action equals results. And that's the reality. You can take all the action you want, but if you're not properly educated, you're taking the wrong action. And, why do I know that? Very simple. When I started taking massive action, it was in 2005, believe it or not. I started buying mobile home parks. I bought strip malls. I was taking massive action. But it was the wrong action because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. When I finally decided in 2008, got to buckle down. I've got to learn this multifamily gig because I love dealing with residents. I love, quote unquote, the passivity, however you want to call it. And let me explain. I had a restaurant working full time. I could buy a 4-unit and dedicate a couple hours a month to it and still make money and still have a business. That's what I loved about multifamily. I didn't want a single family home. I didn't want to fix and flip. I wanted to buy these apartments. And to me, it would really fit my model. Go out there and seek what model is going to fit you. When I started buying them, then I got coaching. I invested a ton of money back in the day in coaching, probably about $45,000 to $50,000 in coaching back in 2008. To me, it was a tremendous.
What was your ROI on that?
And that's the funny thing. It got paid off after that Courtyard Cottages, after the first refi. I got all my money back and then some. So I've been playing with house money. $25 million later out of refis. You guys go do the math. Was it worth investing $45,000 to have a $25 million ROI? I don't know, but it's just the skills that allowed me. And more importantly, it was meeting Jake. So when I met Jake didn't know anything about multifamily. I taught him everything. Not really, but
dude, everything, like literally.
The point of that,
it's true.
The point of the statement was, I was ready. I was prepared. I knew what I was talking about. Jake was boots on the ground. Jake was a grinder. He was going to the properties. He was managing the properties, but I had the skills to underwrite the deals, to talk to the brokers, to do the property tours, to close the deals, to help fund the deals, creative financing. That's what we did in our first deal. I knew about creative financing because I learned from my mentors. Was it worth $45,000? I would have paid $450,000 now looking back. But that's important. Join mastermind groups. Come to events. We're having an event in November 5th and 6th in Orlando. Come to MM5. MM4 last year, you're talking about 900 investors out there, hundreds of millions of dollars in that room of people raising deals, finding capital. And that's what they're doing in that room. Go to them. And for me, what happened was it changed my mindset. All of a sudden, I became a life coach and I saw the questions that I wasn't asking myself. Why am I not in that room? What you need to do is see who your peer group is. That's why we have the Jake and Gino community. It's an amazing peer group. It got me through COVID. I didn't have any issues for COVID because I had my community coming to all these events, being energized, learning, turning off all the noise and focusing on what I wanted to help grow my business and my life. So join mastermind groups, communities, attend these events, money mixers that we have. We have boot camps. The students love these events because all of a sudden we go to them and we learn stuff from other operators out there, which is really amazing. You think Jake and Gino knows everything? This is why we have this podcast, because Jake and I are learning on this podcast as we're doing this podcast. Thoughts come to our mind. This is our mastermind weekly. We love this. This is probably the best part of the week for Jake and myself because we
forced
get to
networking. It's like it's scheduled. I'm not getting out of it. So,
well, listen, before we get on, we shoot the breeze. We talk about what's going on. Then we get on. We actually have the show. We enjoy talking to each other on the show. And usually it's with a guest. And then we network with that guest. And that guest introduces us to somebody else. So we're leveling up our peer group. That's what you should be doing. So once again, November 5th and 6th in Orlando, MM5. There's a link down in the show notes. And if you want any information, just hit me, Gino at jakeandgino.com. I'd love to talk about the event because the event is amazing. It's life-changing. Once I started going to these events, I was like, the middle-class mindset, when I was at the restaurant, I can't come to the events. I have to work. I don't have time for that. The wealthy mindset, I'm doing 7 or 8 events a year. Actually, this weekend, we have a Finance Right boot camp. I'm getting on a plane Friday, 3 a.m. I'm leaving the house because I'm going to be all weekend with 100 students talking about Finance Right. That wasn't me 10 years ago. Me 10 years ago would be making all the excuses in the world not to get to that event. So please, I implore you, start leveling up. Start getting around people who you admire. Success leaves clues. Join those groups that have the success, Jake.
So the big difference between wealthy people that I know and middle-class performers. Middle class, I don't have time for this. I'm too busy. Wealthy mindset, how do I figure it out? Now, let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsor.
you are looking to get involved in multifamily, this is where you need to be.
The team you've built is incredible.
There is no egos here. Everyone is always looking to help the other person.
Jake, you made a great point. Wealthy people figure it out. But wealthy people, what they also do, Jake, is they make a commitment. We committed to multifamily and we committed to Jake and Gino. There's sacrifices that come along with that commitment. We understand as wealthy people, we're going to have to give certain things up. I can't go out and play golf Sunday mornings, spend 6 hours away from the family. I can't go out and drink every weekend. I have family commitments. I have business commitments. So understand that there is a sacrifice that comes along with creating wealth. You don't want to have that sacrifice? Then just stop listening to the show right now, because that's the reality. You want to be a good opera singer? I'm singing opera. Jake's got me singing opera. You know what? I have to make a commitment to that. Every Friday, I'm going to lessons. Every Wednesday, I'm in choir. And Sunday mornings, I sing at church. And during the week, I'm practicing. So when I'm doing that, I'm giving up something else. So that's what I think the rules of money and the rules of wealth need to do. You need to focus on what you want. Once you know what that is, we have to commit to that. And we have to learn what sacrifices we need to make, Jake.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point, because it's really about becoming a producer and not a consumer. Ultimately, you can consume, but you need to be producing more than you're consuming. And I think that the folks that really are contributing the most to society are the ones creating the jobs. Okay. It's hard in the beginning to get started and to create a well-oiled machine. And ultimately, if you're producing jobs, you're producing wealth, you're adding and contributing to society. And look, it's all about mindset. We talked about this, folks. This is the difference in the mindset. Okay. We talked about it. Look, buy assets that produce a yield, become a producer in society, and ultimately you're going to get rewarded. We talked about it earlier too. You're in a better tax position by being a producer. Okay. These are the types of things that when Gino said you're playing a different game, we don't make the rules. We just try to figure them out. Okay. We don't lay this stuff out. We just know that there's a different path to take than the path that most Americans are taking day in and day out. And if you find how to play the game correctly, you will be rewarded for it. So,
Jake, I implore everybody, we have a bunch of resources at jakeandgino.com. Go to jakeandgino.com / go to the podcast page. Jake said something real. I'm going to use the word profound. I said a couple of profound things. He said something that is truly profound, probably one of the most important things that a wealthy person has. Be a producer, not a consumer. And that's not our sentiment only. MJ DeMarco talks about it all the time. Go listen to MJ DeMarco's podcast, The Millionaire Fastlane. We did 2 podcasts with him on the Jake and Gino channel. He trends up so high. You know why? He doesn't talk about BS. He's like us. He says the real deal. And when you produce and you focus on producing and creating value, what happens is you create wealth from creating value. And then you don't even worry about producing. Producing is secondary. Yeah, I'll go buy the car when I want to. Hey, I'll buy the house. Don't focus on the car. Focus on the actions that'll buy the car for you. Become a producer. That's so profound. So go to jakeandgino.com and listen to MJ DeMarco's. And the other one is, we did a podcast with Tom Wheelwright. I'm trying to think of the podcast. It was Tom Wheelwright had one on cost segregation and tax benefits. That's another show that you guys should really listen to and see how profound the tax benefits that we have in multifamily, or the tax benefits that are ushered to entrepreneurs. We can sit here and debate the fairness of it till we're blue in the face. See how my shirt is blue? We can debate it till it's blue in the face. But why the Zuckerberg and Bezos, why don't they pay no taxes? Because they create value. The government they ultimately know that they have no shot at creating true jobs. Only the market can do it. They can pump money in. They can create shovel-ready jobs. They don't create jobs. They take money out of the economy and go waste it. They need people like you, me, and everyone listening to the show who's an entrepreneur to create those jobs. How do they stimulate that action? By the tax code. And that's why entrepreneurs and multifamily investors have those benefits. They can't provide affordable housing, so they need Jake and Gino and all the thousands of other operators out there to do that. So they stimulate that behavior by offering incentives. We all have the same rules. There are over 70,000 pages in a tax law. There are no loopholes. There are just rules and laws. If you want to become wealthy, become intimate with what the benefits are and what actions you need to take, and what investments. I mean, the multifamily is an amazing investment, but it's also a business. That's the great thing about multifamily. I'm not buying stock in a company and have no real tax benefits to it and have no control. When I buy a 25-unit little apartment complex, I'm buying an asset that I can control. I'm buying a business, and I'm getting amazing tax benefits all wrapped up into one. How many other assets or investments can you say do that? Very few are
that are attainable to all of us. Look, Gino was a pizza guy. I was a pharmaceutical rep. Very attainable for your average citizen, average American, to go out and start investing in apartments. That's the difference. It's a great way to start entrepreneurship and to start a small business. Now, you get the snowball going. You're starting to produce wealth. You're starting to, make that return on investment month over month. You're getting into apartments. I think we touched on it in our Honeybee book about streams of purpose, Gino. And also, you just had an interview with a priest who's, quite the little entrepreneur himself, but also giving back and talking food. So you want to touch on streams of purpose once you get your snowball rolling.
And Jake, that's a great question. We wrote the Honeybee because of that. It's right behind me, the yellow book over there. On the wrong side. The Honeybee is all about multiple streams of revenue. And you're starting out with one. And I know most of you out there are saying, I don't even have a property yet. Listen, wherever you are in life, if you're 25 years old, go get a 3% down FHA loan, house hack. You can start. It's all about the mindset. It's not about the lack of money. It's about the lack of creativity and the lack of education. Once you learn the skill, you'll be able to raise capital, but you have to start. And the Honeybee, go check it out. It's at jakeandgino.com. It's all about creating those streams of revenue, complementary. It has so many, laws and lessons that Jake and I learned, but ultimately it's about creating streams of purpose. And Jake and Gino is one of my streams of purpose. And Rand Cares is an offshoot of what the Jake and Gino community is all about. And that's why we created that. And now having all those streams of purpose, there's a beautiful symbiotic relationship with what we're doing. We have the multifamily, we have the property management, we have the education arm. Those three are so beautifully run. Now we started doing Rand Partners with the syndication company where we're raising capital. We have acquisition fees and asset management fees. And now we started a development company. We're going to start building as well. So that's what multiple streams of revenue are. Now, all of a sudden, you're not dependent upon one stream. In 2013, when I started and I bought my first property with Jake, I had 3 streams of revenue. I had a little note, seller finance note. I had my restaurant, and I had a 4-unit. That's all the streams of revenue that I have. Today, less than 10 years later, I've got 40, 42. I don't even know. We closed on a couple of properties in the last couple of months. I haven't updated it, but think about the growth. I am not dependent upon one stream of revenue. And all those streams keep feeding each other. They work so well, beautifully. And Jake's talking about the debts, the snowball. He talks about that cash flow snowball. Keep reinvesting that money. When we got that money that we refinanced out of all those properties, we put them into the next property, into the next deal. We're basically taking a loan on a property with a refinance. If we're refinancing $100,000 on a property, we're getting $100,000 today. That's basically a loan against the property. So you are not paying any taxes on that money today, and you're able to invest it in, let's say, $1 million property. Let's say 10% down. You're getting an asset that's worth $1 million. You're putting $100,000 down. You're getting all the benefits of that $1 million asset with only $100,000 down. Do you know how many pizzas I had to sell to net $100,000? Them's a lots of pizzas there, people, because I need to be able to gross $170,000, $180,000 to net $100,000 living up in New York. Think about that for a second. That's insane. But yet I refi a property, get all that money day one, tax-free, net, and I'm able to put that money into another deal.
Yeah, and with this snowball growing, we've been able to feed hundreds of thousands of kids through our Rand Cares program. So it just keeps elevating. You're able to do more, produce more, and give back more. So that's been very rewarding for us. Now, Gino, you got a series of tips here. We're going to wrap this up. You want to hit those before we close it out?
Yes. And this is important because it all comes down to planning. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. That's what it's all about. The guy on the other side of the camera there really taught me that. And I thought I was a really good preparer, but he really, really, truly prepares every day. He's been doing it since 2005. And that's why he's successful. Number one is to create your home budget. You need to create a budget. You want to call it a budget, savings account, spending account, whatever that is. You need to know what money's coming in and what money's going out. I'm a proponent of that. That's probably one of the only things that I really agree with Dave Ramsey. A couple other things I'll talk about, but that's truly important because if you have any leaks, and this is not just for the expense side, how much income are you generating? are you able to generate more? Look at your top line revenue. Don't worry just at the money you're spending every week. See what you're earning every week. If you're a salesperson, how many sales calls are you making? If you're buying properties, how many properties you need to buy? If you're a realtor, how many showings are you showing? How many listings are you locking up? That's what it comes down to. If you don't have this thing scheduled out and you're not looking at them, you're not going to focus on that. It's not going to happen. So create the home budget. And number 2 is very simple to what Jake was talking about. Plan your weeks out. Don't let your day happen to you. Take control of your day. And this may be hard in the beginning. I understand that everything's difficult to get the ship off the ground. But once it's up off the ground, it's like not even thinking about it. You need to plan the weeks. When it's Monday morning and you're ready to go to work, you need to know what needs to get done that day. And I'll let Jake talk about that a little bit because I know it's really impacted his life. But if you don't know what's happening, if you have to think about it all the time, it gets tiring. Spend a little time on the front end. Everyone who's wealthy spends time on the front end because they know the benefits that they're going to get on the back end.
Yeah, very simply. Every Sunday, I plan my week out. I know exactly where I'm going to go. It's time blocking. There's no failure with it. It happens because I'm not going to wake up scatterbrained, frantic, not know what's going on Monday morning. I wake up, I follow the yellow brick road. Everything's detailed out for me. Even this shirt was sitting there ready to go for this podcast today. The stupidest stuff is planned out so I don't have to think, and I can use my brain energy on higher level tasks and creative things that are going to benefit the business, not wasting time on this silly stuff.
Love that, bro. Number 3, create goals. We overestimate what we can do in a year, and we truly underestimate what we can do in 3, 5, 10 years. Create some yearly goals. We've got podcasts about goal setting. I mean, the Jake and Gino community, it's huge because it's really about mindset. I don't know if we've touched about mindset and talked about mindset a lot, but I think the wealthy also have that growth mindset. So if you're not creating goals for yourself, you don't know what to focus on, you're not going to achieve them. This 4th one is really important. And you might be like poo-pooing this one, but really, what's this going to do to make me wealthy? Put aside at least $1,000 as an emergency
minimum.
Fund. Yeah, when you're starting out, try to put that money in because what happens, and that money should probably be $2,000 now because of inflation. But let's say you're driving, your car goes out, all of a sudden you got to change tires or something happens to your air conditioning at the home. You have to repair it. You have the money. You don't scramble. You're not nervous. You're not flustered. It's like another one of those. If you have that money set aside, wealthy people have that set aside, have the discipline. It's not about instant gratification. It's really about that discipline to be able to have that money put aside. Now, the next one is put away 3 to 6 months of income. Now, as the pandemic happened, you see that people who had money set aside, they truly enjoyed these last couple of years. They're not stressing out. They've got money set aside. They have options. I think the quality of your life is really dependent about the quality of options you have. If you have no money set aside and you need to go to work, all of a sudden you're a slave to your work or you're a slave to your bills. Have that money set aside. If you want to take a break and think about life and reassess life, have that money set aside at least 3 to 6 months. I think the next one, Jake, is to properly insure yourself. I think insurance is seen as an expense. Once again, insure for the catastrophic, not the consequential. Have enough home insurance, insurance on your cars, insurance on your life. Once you're gone, is your family protected? Are your heirs protected? Think about that now. The wealthy are constantly thinking about giving these assets and donating, whether they're charity, to the family, a trust fund. Jake and I have really been pondering this and really been doing a lot of work on it because we want to leave a legacy. Wealthy people want to leave that legacy. It's not just about them, and it's not just about legacy wealth. It's about legacy skills. This is why we're doing this podcast. So hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, my children are listening to this podcast and they're listening and absorbing and going, wow, Dad really taught a lot of people. And I'm going to adhere to a lot of his advice. So the insurance aspect is key. Insure yourself so that if something does go wrong, you're properly insured. And I think the last one I have right down is take control of your credit score. When you're first starting out, credit is so important. And I created the Personal Finance Academy for young adults. If you have a low credit score, everything is more expensive. You're renting an apartment. You're taking a loan out for a car. You're taking a loan out for a home. Everything is more expensive. So work on your credit score when you're younger and make sure that you understand how credit works and how you can raise or elevate your credit score.
Man, this is a lot of content. Gang, if you want to be around results-based multifamily community, the results-based multifamily community, look, our community has done over 50,000 apartments. They purchased over 50,000 apartments, over $4 billion in assets, okay? Multifamily of Mastery 5, Gino touched on it, www.jakeandgino.com/MM5. Love to have you there as our guest. It's going to be the Multifamily Conference of the Year. Gino, great job today, and we'll see you next time.